All right, everyone, this is the American Werewolf, and the channel is now going to start including, because I'm turning the channel just into one-stop shopping, we're going to start including cinema, which is one of the things that I love to talk about. Even if we're talking about horror or sci-fi, I want to talk about the very best of every particular genre, and cinema is the absolute highest in terms of my rating scheme. We've got content at the bottom, the vast majority made up of the stuff in the middle called entertainment. And then at the very highest of the pyramid, you've got cinema. And there's no better film to kick that off with than 1990's Henry and June, directed by Philip Kaufman. And Kaufman is probably more well known for directing The Unbearable Lightness of Being with Daniel Day-Lewis and Juliette Binoche, based on Milan Kundera's book. But my favorite and my money every time is on Henry and June. And this is the type of movie that you put in when life starts to feel a little sterile and dry and repetitive. Now, I should mention that this movie, it's not that old. I mean, it happened in 1990, but that's 34 years ago. And it was the first ever NC-17 movie. So there's a heavy sexual element in this, a lot of sex, done very tastefully, I thought. And basically it tells the story of Henry Miller, who was my favorite writer, most famously known for Tropic of Cancer, as he is in the process of writing Tropic of Cancer. And as he begins an affair with Anais Nin, who was another famous writer of the time, and the triangle that exists between those two and Miller's wife, June. And of all people that they cast in the role of Henry Miller, they put Fred Ward in. And Fred Ward is just a fantastic character actor, and he's recently passed away. And it's easy to know him for Tremors or, something a little more on the fun side. But this foray into real cinema, I would have, as the leading man, I would have loved to have seen more of this out of him. Unfortunately, we didn't get it, but I just got through watching this movie again. It's not a movie I watch frequently because the movies that I enjoy are the ones I watch with the least amount of frequency because I never want to get tired of them. And I just don't feel like films like this are made anymore with this type of maturity. And sure, it's NC-17. And it just seems like a thing of the past to talk about with real dialogue and real effort and real performances, these sorts of things that just happen in people's lives. Nowadays, it's much more about laughs. If you're going to do a rom-com or explosions or this person taking their shirt off. And although, there's a heavy sexual element here, it isn't that kind of story. It's about real people going through very real things. I don't even know who you would begin to cast in a film like this. And basically, it comes from Anais Nin and her diaries, which were not published until after she passed, or at least many of them were not, because they contained secrets of extramarital affairs that were kept from her husband until the last of them passed, which actually between Miller, Nin, and her husband, Hugo, turned out to be Hugo. I think he lived to be 100. And then after he passed, these books were published and the information became known, which led to this film. But it starts out in 1931 Paris, and I'm not going to give too many spoilers. This isn't a film that streams. Maybe you can get it on Amazon or YouTube to purchase, to rent, but it's not something you're going to find on Netflix or on Tubi or on Max or anything like that. Probably because of the rating, but also probably because it has a sort. The better something gets sometimes, the more limited the engagement. So this is kind of more towards the cult end of things. And every once in a while, you'll find a small cinema house that will drop a theatrical release of it, and it's beautiful when it happens. And I'd love to be there at some point if this ever gets released, but I haven't yet, so I have to depend on my physical media copy, which I proudly own. And maybe one day I'll upgrade to Blu-ray. I'm not even sure if this is transferred over to Blu-ray, but I'll have to do it. Now, the story takes place in 1931, and it finds Medea de Medeiros playing a very young Anais Nin in early 30s Paris again. and she's writing and trying to express her creativity, and she feels that something is missing. She's married to a very nice man named Hugo, but he works at a bank, and she just feels very stifled and bored and unfulfilled. Although they live a very comfortable lifestyle, she understands enough about herself that she wants to bleed some life into her. So she's already thinking about, the possibility of having an extramarital affair with an older man or some, who can offer her some sort of direction. Hugo is played by Richard E. Grant, another fantastic performer, who's a very affable and sort of naive fellow who's working at the bank. So, she can write. He's frustrated that she's frustrated. And then one day, up to her door walks the American writer Henry Miller. And Henry, again, is played by Fred Ward. And to me, I just love his interpretation of Miller. That he's just this lovable mooch. He has no problems, taking money if you're going to give him some money. Or, hey, because he's living, very hand to mouth on the streets of Paris. This is happening during the Great Depression. And, hey, you need this bike. You can't get around. Sure, no problem. He has no problem accepting things from people. He just takes his pride right out of the issue, and you can't help but like him. He writes for he is the man in the street. He's writing for the man in the street because he is the man in the street. And I remember on my first trip to Paris, I went through the Miller Walk, which is through Montparnasse, and I visited many of the cafes that are still standing that he frequented. I even saw a park bench that he used to sleep on. And one of my favorite Miller stories, I'll give you two of them very quickly, was and this is in Tropic of Cancer, that he would pass by a bookstore every day where a book that he wanted to read was opened in the shop window, this big, huge shop window. And every day, for his pleasure, the shopkeeper would turn a page in the book for him to come back the next day, and he read an entire book that way, 2 pages at a time, every single day until he completed the book. That's just the type of magic or something that I find completely magical that Miller was living with, and just sort of making the smallest things just seem fantastic. He just seemed to have this appreciation for life itself. Was always talking about how, we're all guilty of not living life to the fullest. And, he included himself in that, but I think he did a pretty damn good job. Another story that I remember from one of Miller's books, it might have been from Tropic of Cancer, but I can't remember because there are so many and I think I own them all, was that when he was at his worst financially, he would write a letter to various friends saying, hey, do you mind if I come over on Sunday for a meal? I'm a little down on my luck right now. And they would say, sure, no problem. Talk to the wife. Yeah, no problem. Come on over on Sunday. There's always a place here at the table for you. But what they didn't know was that Miller wrote 7 different letters to 7 different friends so that every day he was covered for at least one meal. And there are great scenes in there where he just comes up to a complete stranger. Hey, buddy, have you got a few francs? Because they didn't have euros back then. It was francs. I'm a little short today. He's just fantastic. Fred Ward's affable, amiable, but extremely brilliant writer, Miller. And so she immediately becomes infatuated by, how, sort of worldly and fun this man seems. It's the furthest thing possible from working at a bank until she meets June, who is played by a 19-year-old Uma Thurman in an NC-17 movie. So I'm just going to leave that out there, leave that hanging. 19 years old, Uma Thurman, NC-17 film. And Nin's infatuation shifts to June, who is just this, and in many of Miller's books, the character of June is caricatured in several of his stories. She's Mona in Tropic of Cancer. She's Mara, I think, in the Rosy Crucifixion trilogy. But Uma is just this gorgeous taxi dancer turned muse for Miller. She's a pathological liar and manipulator and a button pusher. And you get the impression that within all of that, she's kind of lost too, even though she seems to be able to push everybody's buttons. At the end of the day, she's a very lost and distraught person, but she seems to be able to successfully maneuver everybody in there. So you've got Miller, you've got Nin, you've got Hugo. And yeah, let me get back to it. Maria de Medeiros is just absolutely brilliant as Anais Nin, this young, sort of innocent, beautiful woman who understands that something is missing in her life and just decides she's going to go for it and get the experience that she needs as a human being. Ultimately realizing that she's gone too far. And then you watch her slowly sort of pull back and try to get to some sense of normalcy. There's some pain there. There's some pain there as she's trying to navigate between her husband and Henry. Everybody loves everybody. You know, it's genuine love, and you know, it's not a cheap sort of affair. These are Nin and Miller are people who became lifelong friends. I think this narrative in the movie takes place over the course of 1 year. But they ended up being friends for decades. After the affair had ended, they became friends and colleagues and supporters of each other. So this is just a year in the life of a decades-long friendship between all of these people. It's just, you even got Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey is there as Osborne, Miller's sort of goofy friend and roommate. And like I said, all of this is taking place while they're in the process of writing Tropic of Cancer. It's just a beautiful, beautiful piece of art. And that is something that is so absent in today's Hollywood art. And that's what this film is. I don't know if it's an art film, but it is in of itself just this beautiful piece of art with a gorgeous soundtrack. And one of the characters, of course, whenever you film a movie here, is the city of Paris. Just absolutely beautiful. Even in the rain, Paris looks gorgeous. In the small hotels, in the small apartments, you know, Henry's sort of roach-infested apartment, it's still gorgeous. Every particular shot is just beautiful. And, you know, maybe that's part of the artist's perception, is to try to bring beauty forward onto the screen for the viewer. And they're just so successful, even as you're watching these flawed people try to navigate their way through life. Richard E. Grant, again, as the sort of naive guy who's just sort of along for the ride, trying to understand what's happening with everybody. A beautiful, beautiful film. Ultimately, I'm not going to get into too many spoilers because I don't think enough people have seen this film. But again, I just got through watching it, and it does the trick for me every time. Philip Kaufman's Henry and June, starring the great Fred Ward, Maria de Medeiros, Uma Thurman, Richard E. Grant, Kevin Spacey. I'm giving it 4.5 out of 5. Give this movie a chance. If you're a horror fan, or if you're a sci-fi fan, if you're an action thriller fan, give something with an actual story a chance. And one of the best opportunities to find a movie that gives you a story is to look at cinema. And cinema can bridge any sort of genre, but here we're looking at drama, and it's just a beautiful story. And most importantly, I think it's a true story. Give it a shot. I'm giving it 4.5 out of 5. I don't consider it to be perfect, but it is a wonderful piece of cinema. And I'm glad that someone decided to have the courage to write a story about these people's lives and about my favorite author. I couldn't be more happy about that. So, yeah, check it out. Get yourself a physical copy. Pay $3.99 to rent it on Amazon or YouTube or wherever you can pay for these sorts of movies. Maybe even get yourself a physical media copy. It's absolutely worthwhile. Okay, that's my video. Like this video. Let me know if you want to see some more cinema. Make a suggestion. I'm not going to guarantee, I'm not necessarily in the habit of taking requests, but if it's something that I'm agreeable to, I'd be happy to review it. What do you think of this movie? Are you interested? NC-17, true story, great characters, great writing, great performances, beautiful setting. I don't see what the problem is. So leave a comment. If you have seen it, let me know what you think of it. Subscribe to the channel. I will see you all in the next video. All right, everybody. Take care. Have a good one. God bless you.